The 76ers were once just this team that was always tanking at the top of the lottery, trying to get these number one picks. Now we're talking about the 76ers. Are they contenders or not? The answer we'll get to in this video. If you want to see more outlooks for this next season in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'm dropping these daily. Hot Mike Sports Show is rising up, and I appreciate you guys for helping me with that. So continue to hit the subscribe button and the like button, and we'll hop right into this video. So 76ers made some great moves this offseason. They finally dumped off Al Horford. They brought in some shooters like Curry. They brought in some shooters like Danny Green. They had a nice draft pick. I believe that Tyrese Maxey is going to be pretty good in the NBA. So they made some positive moves. If you went back and you watched my 76ers rebuild video where I essentially said what I thought that they should do going into the offseason, I said keep around Tobias Harris. And they did that. Tobias Harris was really successful in Doc Rivers' system. That's when he actually deserved his money. And now he got his money and he didn't seem to produce. Well, now Doc Rivers is his coach. So we'll have to see how he does. I like him in this system. They somehow built a team around Simmons and Embiid. So props to the Sixers for that. But we'll hop straight into their lineups and I'll talk about their projections for you. So Ben Simmons running the one, obviously. Again, actually, before I get into it, these are my projected lineups. I have no ties to Philly. They could release a totally different lineup, and I do actually see this lineup going a lot of different ways. So, make sure you keep that in mind before you run in the comments saying Danny Green starting over Curry or whatever. Ben Simmons at the 1, Seth Curry at the 2, obviously electric shooter. That's what you need around Simmons and Embiid. Matisse Thybulle at the 3 and D guy, really good up-and-coming guy. I think he starts this year, and I'd love to see that from Matisse. Tobias Harris at the 4, Joel Embiid at the 5. So this starting lineup, just to break it down really quick, you get defense all across the board. Ben Simmons is all defense first team in my opinion. Joel Embiid is much of the same. Obviously Curry and Tobias Harris are kind of lackluster defenders, but you have 3 really, really solid defenders that can, for Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons' size, can really defend the perimeter and then the interior. And I think that they can run a defensive system that really, really works. Also with Doc Rivers, a great defensive head coach. I do think this team will be a top 10 team defensively. And then they'll also be able to obviously put points on the board with Ben Simmons averaging 20+, Embiid averaging 20+, Curry being able to space the floor and knock down shots at any time. And I still think Tobias Harris will get better this next year. So it's obviously a very, very quality starting lineup. And off the bench, Tyrese Maxey at the 1. I love that draft pick. I think he's perfect for them. Shake Milton at the 2, Danny Green at the 3, Justin Anderson at the 4, and Dwight Howard at the 5. Now these guys, some of them are just quality pickups like Dwight Howard. Did they really need Dwight? Not really. But it's a good backup 5. I don't think we'll ever see Dwight starting to get another starting role like he had in the Lakers for a decent amount of time. Justin Anderson's a great defender to have on your team. Danny Green's a good 3 and D guy, mostly 3 guy actually. Now that I think about it, Shake Milton is a guy that can come off the bench and handle the ball for you. And same thing as Tyrese Maxey. So this team is, to me, it's 9 deep. You could stretch and say 10 deep, but I think this team is actually built super duper well. Here's the problem: when it comes to playoff time and you're playing a team in the 7-game series, I think it'll be easy to stop Simmons and Embiid. I still believe, in my opinion, that this team cannot coexist with 2 superstars named Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I think you need a point guard that can shoot the ball, or you need a new center that can shoot the ball like Karl-Anthony Towns or something like that. I don't believe that these 2 can coexist. We'll have to see, because this is about as good as it gets. This has got to be the last year of the experiment, because you're surrounding them with shooters, and you have a good bench. This is the team, right? And this is the wide open East where, Philly's a contender, Miami's a contender, Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston. Those teams are all contenders, and, a couple of changes here or there, and one of these teams are for sure championship, teams. Obviously, I don't think anyone can touch the Lakers. I think there's one blank space and then another team. And I think Philly could skyrocket themselves in, depending on how this experiment goes. If Seth Curry does what Seth Curry is expected to do, I think that's a perfect addition. It's how does Simmons and Embiid really go on the floor together, and then what does that do to Tobias Harris? Does it make him more of like just a shooter role? Because that is incredibly limiting to a player like Tobias Harris. Not only is he not a good enough shooter to just be a shooter, he's getting paid $34.5 million to do it. So, I mean, give that 34.5 to Klay Thompson or something like that and let him run the 4 at that point, because he would be better for that team running the 4 than Tobias Harris is at his natural position. So this is definitely a super interesting team. I think it is one of the more interesting teams in the NBA, and that says a lot because this year is full of interesting teams. I think the 76ers, honestly, and I mean, this is not an unpopular opinion whatsoever, and it's super vague, but they could go anywhere between 1 and 5 in the East. Anywhere at all. And again, I know that sounds super vague, and it's like, okay, you know, I could have said that, but they could have a tough season. I mean, there's really, really good competition in the East now, and actually all across the NBA. You have to watch out for everyone, and if this experiment doesn't work, they won't have home court advantage in the first round. And that's crazy to say when you look at a team that's talented. But then this experiment goes perfectly. They finally found the right blend of shooting paired along these two stars, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, anchor them defensively, and this team is all of a sudden a top 3 defensive team, can put points on the board, can stretch the floor. It's almost impossible to stop. They're a 1 or a 2 seed. So this team has so many questions, and it all boils down to how Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid work with this new squad. And then this time next year in the offseason, I'll be talking about the move that they might have just made, dealing off Simmons or dealing off Embiid. And something I want you guys to watch out for before I let you go, I know it's a little bit shorter, is if this experiment isn't working at the trade deadline, what do they do? Does Simmons get moved? Does Embiid get moved? I feel like they're going to keep Embiid. Does Simmons get moved at the deadline? Say this team is 7 or 8 in the West. My answer is yes. And at that point, there will be a lot more selling teams, a lot more rebuilding teams that will take on Ben Simmons. Maybe that team is Orlando. Maybe that team is Detroit. You never know. I mean, at that point, a lot of teams will have more valuable draft picks knowing how things are going that season. I think that the trade deadline, this team could make it super interesting. They've always been a team to make moves. Now you got Daryl Morey. But I trust in Daryl Morey. I think he did make it work in terms of the shooting aspect. I think he built the right team around him. I think this team will end up finishing as like a 3 seed. I think this team will finish behind like Boston, either Milwaukee or Miami. And this team will finish as a 3 seed, get eventually knocked down in the second round. I think really those top 5 teams that I listed off, Philly, Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, and Toronto will take care of any team in the first round. I don't think. Oh, and Brooklyn. That throws so much more in there. Honestly, that I don't know why I forgot about Brooklyn. That team is again another experiment, and I talked about Brooklyn. So if you want to go check out that video, but it'll be very, very fun to see this Eastern Conference, and you'll hear me say that a lot throughout these videos. It really is going to be a super fun season, and I hope you guys subscribe and you stay with Hot Mike Sports, because I'll be dropping videos every single day throughout the season. You already know what's up. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you like my style, you like my content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.